Steam locomotives were some of the most powerful machines ever built. They pulled trains that fueled our imagination. They represented vision, collaboration, ingenuity, customer service, and extraordinary human achievement. But in order to get to their destination, it took someone guiding them through a series of switches in order to get to the main line. Just like leaders today, it takes someone directing them down the right path in order to get to their destination. Welcome to Mainline Executive Coaching, ACT, which stands for and Cultural Transformation, hosted by Master Certified Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaches Michael Bailey and Rich Barron, with over 50 years of successful cultural transformation and quantum leadership development between them. Brought to you by Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaching, the world's foremost authority on cultural transformation and intelligent leadership development. Once again, thanks for joining us and enjoy today's show.
All right, thank you for joining us today. This is Mainline Executive Coaching, ACT. Leaders, are you leading? How well are you leading? How well are you doing? How well are your teams doing? And ACT and Cultural Transformation. We got a great guest here today that you're gonna have a great time visiting with him and seeing what it is that he does. I'm Michael Bailey. This is Rich Barron, and this is our guest today, Bryan Nielsen. Great background in education and in leadership training and development, and also in HR. So we're really pleased to have Bryan here with us today. So let's get started. So anyway, we've got an exciting podcast for you today. We're going to be talking to Bryan here about him taking the MLI. We talked a lot about this. This is such a powerful leadership reveal in so many wonderful ways. And we've invited you to come talk to us, take this. And we want to introduce you to someone who's already taken it and what it's like for him, or what he's gone through. So Bryan Nielsen, we've known you for a while. We've had the opportunity to work with you in a number of different ways. We are excited about having you here today. Let's just start with this. When you first heard about this MLEI, and we were telling you about it, what did you think? Were you excited? Were you going, maybe, I don't know. What kind of was your response?
Well, I mean, I've taken other, competency exams such as these behavioral leadership styles in the past, and I kind of felt like, okay, well, this is probably going to be much like those, similar. I'll probably expect, some close approximation of what I think and of how I've viewed myself as a leader, and so I had some association with previous assessments that were similar to that. So that's kind of how I went into it. Was like, okay, well, I've done this before. We'll see if this is really truly different and unique.
Good. What was it like to take it?
It was very easy and straightforward. If that's what you're talking about, the mechanics of it, yeah, it was just very easy and straightforward. I really tried to prepare myself. I was like, well, I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any, influences out external or internal. I was trying to find some isolated time without interruption so that I could concentrate and truly look at the question and think about it so that I would get a true assessment. That's how I approached it.
Good. Exactly. Just being honest about it. Rich, yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Rich, what kind of questions do you have here for Bryan?
Bryan, I know you've got quite a background in HR and also with developing leaders, developing others, coaching others, training people. And with this assessment, we talked to you about the outer core assessments, which is kind of what you mentioned, and there's a lot of great assessments like there. The Myers-Briggs, there's a lot of really good outer core assessments, but that's what they do. They're kind of, they look at your outer core with some of the, the strengths that people see in you. But this inner core assessment, which is what the MLEI is, how do you feel that can help you, or has it helped you to understand some of those other assessments you've taken?
That's a good question. I think that for me, yeah. So I liked how you presented it as this inner core, right? So focusing on us specifically, and I guess looking at it introspectively. Where do you see yourself in relationship to these values or areas, and then where do you truly, when it's, you're truly get the results, where does it articulate? How does it articulate and actually place you in it? That was insightful, and really kind of an eye-opening experience to kind of rip yourself open and I guess kind of see how the tickings of yourself, your mind, your heart, and how that all operates in relationship to the values and the beliefs that you hold, and then the core principles that you guide yourself by. I just thought that was really insightful, and being, yeah, I guess being very, I guess open to being critiqued in a way. Yeah. And the interesting thing is you critiqued yourself.
Yeah. Not in a harsh way, just
No, absolutely. No, you have to be open and transparent to wanting to have your eyes open to seeing things in a different way. That's how I felt about that.
Was there a surprise in there for you? There is one element of your leadership that really could have been or should have been like a surprise, like, really? Do you remember that particular one?
I believe, yeah, I do. I think we're on the same page. I think it was the more about the driver. Is that the one you're speaking about?
The thinker.
The thinker. Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's a guy that is really talented in his ability to not only problem solve, investigate, and all that kind of stuff, but one thing he's really good at is talent development, which is an aspect of the thinker. Very active in it, really got high numbers in it. And yet, interestingly enough, he was something that he was unaware of in terms of who it is that he is. So he didn't bring as much confidence into it as he really has, that he really should appreciate. This is something, Bryan, this is something you're really good. And you're kind of going, I don't know about that. And so, and yet, and that happens time and time again with people. They look at oh, really, that's me. I go, really? And you don't know it, but then suddenly you start really thinking about it and go, by golly, that is something I do all the time. And not only do I do it all the time, I really love it. For some reason, I've just kind of pushed it to the side and I just haven't really valued it.
That's true. Yeah, that's actually right. Yeah, you brought that up. Yeah, that was really eye-opening to me. Yeah, because as I completed the assessment, that was not how I took the assessment did not demonstrate who I truly was in terms of that was not me. I was probably 50% of what I usually am in relationship to that. So yeah, that's a good assessment on that.
What kind of questions do you have for Bryan about, well, what have you done since then, kind of thing? I mean, what do you think here, Rich?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What have you done since then, Bryan? Yeah, but I think, this is just the beginning. Really, it's kind of the tip of the iceberg. And there is so much more to talk about beyond this. So let me ask you this, Bryan, what do you want to know more? What is it that you want to know about the MLEI and what it's telling you, and how do you think you can learn that?
Well, I mean, to know more of something, right, you're going to have to study more about it. And so you had given me the kind of the manual on the guidebook for that, and I've done some studying on that in terms of identifying where you can find yourself derailing and moving off that grid or off that map, and not having that become a strength to you. It now becomes a weakness.
Yeah.
And identifying that has been very I guess, opportunistic for me. I've been able to identify where I've derailed and how I've derailed, and how I can then recoup and get back on that path, and be moving towards becoming more productive in terms of acquiring and enhancing these attributes, or these qualities that I've perceived to have. And I said, so one of those things is secondly, I guess, studying about it, but then being able to identify where that's occurring in your progress in terms of developing yourself into becoming the leader that you want to be, in terms of those things. So identifying where you become to, get off the rails. And
Yeah.
I can see how that happens. All right. So now identifying that, now I got to put it into my routine of when it does start to occur, identify it, and then make course correction before you're off rails, and then you have to recalculate right after that point.
That's interesting. You say that, going off the rails, and I'll give you a little bit of my background on my MLEI, which is, mine was I'm a predominant driver, although there was others that were, equally close, kind of like some of these others, but mine, I was a predominant driver. And so wanting to understand drivers, because drivers, when they go off the rails, they can be, the real, the bad guys.
They're ruthless.
They're ruthless. They can be. And, and so, yeah.
Homicidal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Not my case, but it's true. but
we don't know that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. But gosh, that's one of the things that I wanted to understand, not just the positive attributes of what a driver is, but what happens when you start to derail. And I wanted to recognize, those things. And if I ever started to, stress or anything, and to really, truly understand what I was doing. One thing for me and others we've talked to, you never look at leadership development the same way once you've done this assessment, because from here it just it builds out. But it's that starting in the inner core, the prescription before diagnosis is malpractice, if you will. So having to understand where you start from is critical in your leadership development. You can't just start at a certain point, which is down the road, which is like what a lot of other assessments do. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but if you don't know where to start from, it's difficult to continue down that path, learning those other skills, those outer core skills. But let me ask you this, Bryan. I mean, has this changed the way you think about development, leadership development, or personal development?
Absolutely, it has. Yeah, absolutely. It's altered and or recorrected how I view developing traits of quality leadership in others, and just skill development in people. Absolutely, it has. I guess the one thing, I guess, how it's changed and how it's helped me see things differently is I guess just being able to it's back to that identifier, I guess, derailing and moving off of those trends or tracks where you kind of felt like, well, I don't know, sometimes when we have these behavioral assessments, we kind of, I guess, tend to feel like now this becomes a badge of honor, right? I'm this type of person, right? And so I wear this with pride. But then recognizing that, no, there's also some weaknesses involved in this, right? So don't, be flashing this and being, willing to wave this banner of pride that, hey, I'm this type of individual because this assessment tells me. But being able to identify that if you're too far extreme to the right, then that's not a positive thing, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be maintaining a constant core. And I think that's what generally happens in when we develop individuals and help them progress is, they begin to associate with these titles or descriptions, and they think, well, yeah, that's actually me, and I'm proud of that. But on the extreme is, if you're not honing that, then that begins to work to your detriment, right? And that's not progressive, and that's not moving you forward. It's regressing you. And I think that that's what's been helpful, is helping me see that. And so it's finding a good balance within these, and not holding to the extreme and saying, that's me and I'm proud of this. Well, then you're going to be ineffective.
It's an interesting thing. And you've had a lot of experience working with leaders. You work with leaders now. That's part of what it is you do in your advisory capacities in your consulting business. And you've worked with, emerging leaders and seen how they work. As you take a look at the MLEI and what goes on in the entry point, what the right entry point is, and then how you move through that particular map, we know that 75% of the leaders out there are struggling like crazy. And when we say struggling, they get a leadership position and with 3 years, they're fired, or they can't do it anymore. They just quit, or they get caught up in middle management and they don't know how to break out of it. Here's that funny thing about it. I don't know how to break out of it. And the reason is that they're stuck there is because they don't know how to help their teams break past their limiting beliefs as well. Not realizing it's the leader who has set the bar, they're the one. Yeah. And so if they don't know how to break out of it, then how's the team going to break out of it? So a lot of that stuff happens, and it's like innocent, it's unintentional, it's just something that goes on, and we just kind of, they didn't figure it out. And so looking at it this way, you start to realize that there really are ways that people screw themselves up in their leadership positions. And you probably have seen that. You wonder why this leader is struggling here, or why that one doesn't quite get it, and this one's over here. You've seen many, many examples of it, I'm sure, over the years. If you had known this idea of get your, the right entry point right, get that from the start, and then this is how you lay out how you do leadership. What do you think the difference would have been for those folks that you've watched who've struggled so much, and stressed over that, not getting the results that they wanted and feeling burnout, because they just didn't know. They just didn't know these things and what to do with them.
So if they would have taken this, how would their performance be different? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, for one, let's talk about the individual that is promoted to a senior leadership position that really hasn't honed or improved those leadership capabilities and qualities. Well, you've left a lot of victims in your wake, right? And that's the detriment. You've left a lot of graves, and you've left a lot of people that have been broken, and that's the I guess the negative, or the sad circumstance of that is what's happened. And as you look backwards, you've left a lot of victims, and they've suffered, and you've could have been more of a proactive and a pro developer of these people. Instead, you began to be, a menace to them.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And you've diminished their progress, and you in some cases you've broken people, and that's led them to cease progressing and just relegating to where they are, or they've left the company altogether, and then they've had a bad sentiment or a bad view, because it's not. And with a leader, it's not that you have a bad sentiment towards that leader, but that leader that is associated with an organization now leaves a negative connotation to that organization as a whole too, right? So when they leave, it's not, hey, I had a bad leader. That was a bad company, right? Because of the bad leader.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
And so then, of course, you talked about these mid-level leaders. Well, if they're not being trained and getting the right skill sets, then you're leaving them broken, and they're not being able to progress, right? So it kind of works in tandem in that way. So I think that's how I would address that. Having this, taking this assessment, you can start working on people in mid-level and how they can improve and develop themselves, and in the process, develop that in others. But then if you got senior level, or chief level executives that are in those positions, that you can, well, then now you can now drive and change culture at that point, because that's where. So
that's great stuff. That is excellent.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
You know,
very
I think you mentioned that you pointed out very succinctly that leadership is a privilege, essentially. You hold people's careers in your hands.
Absolutely.
And not only are you holding their career in their hands, it could impact their families. It could impact their future, their family's future. I think there's a lot more to that when, you know, we really break that down. And so as a leader, you owe it not only to yourself, but to everybody around you to truly understand what your strengths, what your gaps are, how you're impacting, you know, your interconnectedness, your footprint on the company, everything around you. You owe it to those people around you and yourself to understand that.
Yep.
This is a way to do that. And not only is this a way to do that, but having a coach, having someone to guide you down that path is also part of that essential development that is really required. It's difficult to do this on your own. It really is. And so, but with having somebody that's knowledgeable,
it's actually not possible.
it's not possible.
It's
No,
not possible. It
No,
is impossible.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
And I think if you go out and ask any leader out there who has had, you know, some success in their organization or success in whatever, at some point they're going to tell you, I had a mentor, I had a coach, I had somebody that helped guide me down this path, or he set me on the right direction.
Yeah. And probably actually a series of those.
Yeah, yeah,
As you're going up the ladder, as you're getting experience, there's not just one or two, there's been a series
yeah.
that really help shape, form, mold, you know, focused you. That's just the truth about that stuff.
Right.
Okay, very good. Anything else we want to say here? Wrapping this thing up.
Yeah. How do they get a hold of you, Bryan? How do people get a hold of you if they want to find out more about what it is that you do?
Well, yeah, you can find me at, of course, linkedin.com
Yeah.
/in/Bryan W. Nielsen. You can
Excellent.
find me directly on LinkedIn that way.
His name's right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, excellent.
All right. Thanks, Bryan. Very, very knowledgeable individual on HR and all things related to helping folks and cultural development.
Educated man is
Yeah.
led educational organizations. Bright fellow, very capable. We're
You guys
very
are
pleased and
too
honored.
kind. Too kind. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's the truth. It's the truth. All right, Rach, let's wrap it up.
Okay. How do they get a hold of us, Michael?
How do they get a hold of us? You're the guy that's always bringing up the little sign.
It is Executive Leaders Act, ILEC.com. That's where you can find us. You can also find michaelbailey.com or richbarronexecutivecoaching.com and reach out to us, and we can talk about this. So let's do the same assessment with you. And it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter where we have global listeners. So wherever you're at, wherever you're listening to us, reach out to us.
So that means that we could, if you're on the moon, we could work with you. We're just doing all we can to help. That's all we're doing here. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So shout outs today.
People in Portugal. Have we talked about people in Portugal? People in Portugal,
No.
people in Italy, people in Chile, people in Argentina. I mean, there's people all over the place, doggone it, that are watching us. We are honored. We are very pleased that you tune in and you watch. Spread the word. The word is spread the word about us, and what we do, and how we can help you and we can help other leaders. That's it.
All righty. Once again, thanks. Take care of each other, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
With all of the issues facing organizations today, leadership development and cultural transformation are needed more than ever. Go to our website, Executive Leaders Act, ILEC.com. Book some time with us. Let's sit down and talk and get you on the path to success. This podcast was brought to you by Intelligent Leadership Executive Coaching, ILEC, the world's foremost authority on leadership development and cultural transformation. Once again, for Mainline Executive Coaching, ACT, this is Rich Barron and Michael Bailey. Thank you for joining